state constitutional right to not be compelled to testify against oneself, nor any federal or state case law regarding the United States Constitution, the Fifth Amendment applied to this state through the 14th Amendment that requires that question to be read. It does not go to the totality of the circumstances of the voluntariness of her waiver of her Miranda rights.
Response.
Judge, obviously we disagree.
Then where's the case that supports that? Because as I addressed previously, I read all the authorities. I mean, State versus Owens, State v. Thomas, Powell from the United States Supreme Court, which reversed the Florida Supreme Court decision. I'll talk about what's required by Miranda. And that question number 9 that you're focusing on isn't included in any of those.
I understand that, Judge.
It's the right to remain silent, the right to an attorney before and after questioning. If you can't afford one, one will be provided to you. Everything you say can and will be used against you. Those are the things that Miranda highlights. That Miranda opinion itself says that. So what does question number 9 have anything to do with those things if the state case law and the federal case law, including but not limited to Miranda itself and Powell, and then the state case law of Thomas and Owens, all of which were provided either by yourself or by the state, identify what's required, and that's not one of the requirements.
She has a duty to read the rights.
But they were.
Okay, I want to finish my argument.
Okay.
She has a duty to read the rights. She has an obligation to ensure that Sarah Boone understands her rights by asking that question. Do you understand the rights I've just read? And then there must be a waiver. Yes, I understand the rights, and I agree to speak to you now. So for that to be freely and voluntarily given, that statement, there must be a conscious waiver of the rights. The problem with the detective is she reads the rights, do you understand the rights, and then she goes right into questioning. She goes right into questioning without saying, do you agree to speak to me? Understanding your rights, do you agree to speak to me now? That goes directly to whether or not it was freely, voluntarily, and knowingly given, the statement, and whether that waiver was. So under the totality of the circumstances, I think that evidence is relevant. It's the policy of the Sheriff's Department. Obviously, she had an old Miranda rights form, but she failed to read what we perceive as a critical question, and she's going to testify about what she perceived at the time that the detective failed to read that question and how it ties into the case.
Sarah doesn't move. Appreciate you coming in.
Yes, ma'am. I want to ask you about these whenever we have a moment.
Sure. So obviously, he received his autopsy. So I'm going to read you your rights again because we have to talk about that. And since I'm talking about the incident, we just have to do it, just like we did yesterday.
Protocol?
Just like we did yesterday. Remember I read you the rights, your rights? Yeah, so it's the exact same thing, but since I'm asking you follow-up questions, I need to read them to you, okay?
Sure.
All right, so you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say may be used against you in court. You have the right to talk to a lawyer before and during questioning without charge. If you cannot afford a lawyer and want one can be provided for you before questioning without charge. Has anyone threatened you or promised you anything to get you to talk to me?
No.
And do you understand what I just read you?
Yes.
Perfect, okay.
Let me take you back to the morning of finding George Torres in the suitcase. You called 911?
Yes.
Is it true that Detective or Deputy Kayla Rodriguez of the Sheriff's Department arrived?
Yes.
What mental state did you have at that time?
I was very confused. It was very hazy. I didn't understand the monumental amount of people that were there and what they were doing with taking things from my home. I was worried about my dogs. I was worried about my son. I was in shock. I was traumatized by the situation and then trying to focus on everything that was going on at my home. I was hungover. I was still, I believe, intoxicated to a degree.
Objection, Judge, move to strike. This is outside the.
Good day.
Mm-hmm.
It was a good day. We've had good days lately,
Mm-hmm.
even considering everything that's going on with our jobs and life in general and ex-wives and everything. It's been good. Like, I don't even know where this is coming from. Read a book, or I'm going to go for a bike ride, or I'm going to do something else. Or I don't want to drink. I don't want to drink. The occasional wine, whatever, or if it's a weekend, that's when you have a good time. You don't have to wake up the next day. I have to wake up the next day and do things. I have to tend to Lucas. I have to take him to school. I have all this stuff to do. He doesn't know how to, I guess, maintain himself where I can do 50 things at once and still know the 50 things more prior that I need to get done.
You guys were just drinking like a glass or two. Like, yeah, you obviously had the bottle, but you told me on recording, like, that you were not drunk, he was not drunk, you guys were having a good time.
I can't get drunk. Number one, I do not want to get drunk. I don't like being non-compos mentis, having my wits about myself. I don't like feeling out of control.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm just saying, you're making it sound like he's a raging alcoholic today, and yesterday I was kind of asking you those questions, and you're like a little defensive, like, no, we're not alcoholics.
I'm not.
We are not, you know. But you guys were both sober on Sunday, to your knowledge, because when I said you went and passed out, you were like, no, I didn't pass out, I just fell asleep. So now it's kind of like, what is it? Were you guys drinking and it got out of hand and
no.
It got physical?
No.
Or is it?
Sunday was one of the better days that we have had in quite some time. I mean, I can get like maybe 2-3 glasses of wine and I'll be fine. But I have to have my wits about myself because I don't know what to expect.
Well, let's talk about Sunday. What was Sunday? How were you, like, how many glasses of wine did you have? How many glasses of wine did he have? The bottle was gone. I mean, I don't know if you poured any out. Yes.
No, that was from previous.
You said that there was a half bottle left
Yeah,
over.
about this much.
Mm-hmm. And then that you had went, that, well.
None that I know of. No. All we had was a bottle of wine. Literally, just a bottle of wine.
Okay.
Doing puzzle artwork. Then we decided to play hide and seek. Mm-hmm. That's all that happened.
Okay. The cups are like right there. Okay. Right here. Don't talk to the ex-husband right now.
I won't.
Okay?
I won't. Can I have a cigarette, please?
Ma'am, I can't take anything out of the house.
It's on the back porch.
Nope. All of it. It's secure. Okay. I'll try my best to get you what you need. Okay. Maybe one of these deputies has a pack from someone. Sit down and I'll try and get you what you need. Okay.
Just cut, please.
Okay.
The way that she acted, the things that she said, the fact that they had your phone. Did you get the impression you were not getting your phone back if you didn't answer the questions?
Objection, irrelevant. She's in custody.
Sustained.
She was in custody?
Yes.
Yeah, it's been conceded by the state in their response that it was a custodial
Okay,
interrogation.
but she wasn't aware of it. She wasn't aware she was in custody.
What does her subjective perception matter?
Well, under the circumstances, it would matter. I mean, she didn't feel she was free to leave. She was in an enclosed small space.
That all goes to whether or not.
She was being questioned by 2 lead detectives, homicide detectives. One of them was wearing a firearm. She was trying to cooperate as best she could. I think her position is that she was coerced into answering the question.
What does that have to do with coercion? Those are all factors that under Ramirez as to whether or not it was custodial.
Well, I know some of the factors are whether or not the interrogation actually happens in a police station or not, or whether it happens outside a police station. So just that environment alone.
That goes to whether or not it was a custodial interrogation. I'm struggling with the connection on that being noncompliance with Miranda, coercion, or the third ground of voluntariness?
Well, I think it goes subjectively to her and what she was feeling, if she had a free choice or not, based on,
What's the subjectivity matter?
excuse me, based on,
Subjectivity matter under the case law.
based on the circumstances that she was dealing with at the time, whether or not she felt she had a choice.
But what does her subjectivity have to do with that?
I believe it's relevant.
Objection's overruled. I'm sorry, the objection sustained. I apologize.
Did you understand you were not going to get your phone back until you answered their questions?
Sustained.
Did you have some questions for them at the end?
I did.
Did you feel like you had a choice in answering their questions?
Sustained.
Ma'am, that day, you came to the sheriff's department to get your phone?
Yes,
Did you know that you were going to be placed in custody?
I did not.
Did you know that you were going to be arrested?
I did not.
Did you know that you were going to be questioned?
I did not.
Were you trying to cooperate with law enforcement based on her statements that you have to talk to us?
Yes.
Overruled.
Were you there answering the questions because she confirmed that this was normal protocol?
That was my understanding, yes.
That's all the questions I have.
Any cross-examination?
So that afternoon on February 24th of 2020, when Deputy Kayla Rodriguez arrived at your residence shortly after 1 p.m., you were under the influence of alcohol, correct?
Yes.
You were impaired by alcohol, correct?
I don't know as much as impaired means. It did affect, yes.
Okay. And that was consumption from the night before, correct?
Yes.
So you did not go to brunch that morning and have mimosas or anything else to drink, correct? And you consumed no alcohol in your home that morning, correct?
Correct.
So does that affect in any way your memory when you testify about the events that transpired between you and Detective Copesel that afternoon?
Ask one more time, please.
Did the alcohol have any effect on your memory of what happened between you and Detective Copesel that afternoon?
Now or then?
Then?
Did alcohol affect my conversation with her?
There's a jury instruction that says a witness's memory and perception is pertinent. And I'm asking you, did the alcohol that you were under the influence of affect your memory or perception of the events that you've testified to today that you said happened on that afternoon of February 24th, 2020?
So did they affect? My answer?
Judge, I don't think she understands the question.
I don't.
Okay.
It's been asked 3 different ways.
So we'll leave it at you were under the influence of alcohol that afternoon, correct?
Judge, I think she said she doesn't know what, she said that she had alcohol under the influence or impaired.
The objection is, the court does not entertain speaking objections. The legal grounds need to be provided. What are the legal grounds of your objection?
I know that she had said she didn't know what it.
What are the legal grounds of your objection?
I'll withdraw.
All right, you may proceed.
And you understand that you're charged with second-degree murder in this case, correct? You're facing a potential penalty of life in prison, correct?
I understand.
Do you understand that the score sheet minimum is probably about 22 and a half years?
I don't know.
Okay. And it is your desire to have these statements excluded from the jury's consideration, correct?
Judge, I would object to that.
Sustain the objection.
Your intent is to testify differently than you have testified in the statements in State's Exhibit 1, correct?
Regarding the.
I would object to that. I'm not understanding what the question.
Mr. J.
Judge, a witness's bias is always at issue when they take the stand, and it's our position that her credibility for all the things that she has testified to today, that particularly the things in conflict with Detective Kopsel's testimony. And the court, of course, in a motion to suppress has to consider the credibility of the witnesses, and you are in the best position to do that. The appellate courts are going to be very deferential to you. It's our position that she's biased. She is charged with second-degree murder. She's facing life in prison. Based on the examination that both state attorneys and defense counsel and the state's expert witnessed today, it is the state's belief that she is intending to testify differently than she testified in the statements that she provided to law enforcement in State's Exhibit 1, and therefore she is biased in all the things that she's testified about today, because it is her intent to get this statement, all these statements, or the statement on 225 thrown out, so that she is not going to be cross-examined and impeached with it, so that she can testify the way that she testified this afternoon.
Response.
Judge, I agree with the impeachment about being under the influence. I agree with the impeachment about what she's facing, that she may be biased because she's facing potentially life in prison. He claims 22 years on the low end. I agree with all that. We just got through at the jail meeting with the state's expert who evaluated Sarah Boone. I was present. The two prosecutors were present. It wasn't recorded. He can't be a witness now. If he's going to question her about what was said during that evaluation, then he's putting himself potentially to be a witness down the road. I don't think that's proper cross-examination about what she said there versus what she's saying here.
Anything further? Mr. J.
I am not specifically asking her what she said that was different. And obviously, if I did and she testified differently, I would have to accept that answer. There's no way for me to extrinsically impeach her with that due to the brevity of the time frame that we have all been subjected to. But I do believe it's a fair question to ask her whether or not she intends to testify differently than her statements that are in State's Exhibit 1 and consistently with how she testified this afternoon, and that she understands it would benefit her if these statements are excluded.
So I'm going to sustain the objection based on how the question was asked. I'll allow you to revisit it based on how you just explained it to me.
You gave statements to an evaluator this afternoon, did you not?
I did.
All right. And without going into the details, would you agree that there are some differences in those statements as to what is in the statements you provided to law enforcement on February 25th of 2020?
Yes.
And you understand that I would be able to cross-examine you on giving inconsistent statements at trial if you take the stand, correct?
I understand.
And so you understand the benefit of this motion to suppress being granted.
Of course.
No other questions?
The only one laughing. Okay. And you're the only one saying derogatory comments, like you're mad.
No, please don't, I don't mean to sound negative, and I don't know if I can say this, but like, it's like you guys are kind of trying to like feed me, like.
No, I'm just trying to show you a video that you no longer want to watch because you probably don't want to know the outcome of how and what you said.
Well, I know what.
You know what's on that video now?
No.
You remember making that video?
Oh,
Why don't you remember making the video?
probably because we had been drinking.
But you weren't drunk.
No. Just because I went upstairs and, just
You
because
told
you're
us-
drunk doesn't mean that
told us
you.
several times that you were not drunk. You said that you had your wits about you. You said he had his wits about you.
Mhm.
You said that you don't like not having your wits. In my experience, if somebody cannot remember doing something to the extent of making 2 videos and taking a photo, they are intoxicated.
Okay, I understand where you all are coming from.